You often hear with the current gay marriage controversy that people in favor of so-called gay marriage are arguing that it's a discrimination issue, that they're not being given the same civil rights as other people to marry. But you think about it, that really doesn't make sense. Um, in a state that has traditional marriage between one man and one woman, everybody in that state, say it's North Carolina, that's recently been in the news, every man in that state who is not married, who is of legal age, has a right to marry with a consenting woman who is not married, who is of legal age in that state. Any man can marry any eligible man can marry any eligible woman. There is no test, as far as I know of, that I've ever heard of, that says, "Are you gay or straight?" Oh, if you're gay, you're not allowed to marry. Oh, if you're lesbian, you're not allowed to marry. If you have this sexual preference, you're not allowed to marry. There's no law like that anywhere that I know of. So no matter what your sexual preference is, no matter what you call yourself, no matter what label you are, you put on yourself, you're allowed to marry. And what marriage is. It's one man and one woman. You know, just look at the animal kingdom. When animals reproduce, if their biology is anything similar to humans and most other mammals, I mean, there may be some funky fish out there or some trees or whatever, but usually there's this male and there's a female, and together they reproduce. I know there's some asexual lizards that lay eggs and stuff, but they're not very much like us. Um, the male, and there's a male and a female, and they join together and form a child and produce children. That's how the races of animals continue. That's how the different species continue on and on. And human beings continue on and on uh, by the same means, a male and a female. And we have this institution in our society called marriage. And this protects it protects women instead of just a wild animal coming by, went to one cat going to another cat who's in heat and impregnating her, and then the female cat raises the kittens on her own. That's not good for humans. As humans, the man marries the woman and takes care of the children and is a provider, and that's a good thing for our society. And that's what marriage is about. It provides stability for society, and the state doesn't have to recognize marriage, but since the state sets the framework of laws, and one area of law is inheritance and who gets the kids and whose children belong to whom, under the legal system, if you have marriage between men and women, then when children are conceived in that union, it's automatically recognized, unless there's some other evidence, that the children belong to that union, and it becomes a very simple way of determining who owns what property and inheritance, and also which child belongs to who. And so it makes sense that we have uh, some recognition of marriage in our society under our legal system for that purpose. But there's no purpose whatsoever for having so-called gay marriage. And why would gay marriage get a pass, but not other things like a group marriage with five guys and three women or whatever. Well, why do we need to have something like that? That doesn't make sense. The one man and the one woman, especially if you have the one man there, you know who the children belong to because there's a marriage between the husband and the wife, as long as everybody is behaving themselves properly. Um, so there's absolutely no reason to have gay marriage. All it does is it creates um, uh, a burden on taxpayers by giving, if it went this far, if there were a tax break for gay married couples or whatever. And it's not really marriage either. It's just calling something marriage. And what I don't get is why does the homosexual rights movement want to have marriage anyway? I mean, why have one and one? Why pair off? I mean, from what I hear, according to the statistics, the pairing offs don't last all that long. Unfortunately, nowadays, the marriages don't last all that long either. So why limit it to one and one, or why? And then what's next? Do we have some sort of institution for homosexual groups? I mean, why do we need to even go there? Why do people's sexual preferences need to afford them minority status? Does that even make sense? And how can you take a human being who's as complicated as we are in our desires and what we want and can evolve over time and label them with some sort of sexual orientation label and then use that as a means of defining them as a minority? If someone is female, that's obvious. If someone's African American, in some societies anyway, depending on the ethnic blend, in a very wide society, if somebody's African American and they're fairly, you know, mostly African descent, of African descent, then that's somewhat obvious as well. You know, these things are obvious, but sexual orientation need not be obvious. So why does that have to have any kind of minority status? So this is not a civil rights issue. Gay marriage is not a civil rights issue. It's trying to redo and rewrite institutions in society, undermine institutions that already exist in society, like marriage, and it serves no useful purpose. It could potentially create a tax drain, and it could create legitimacy for putting children in situations it's not a good situation to put kids in. I've read some statistics that children that are raised in same-sex couples are much more likely to identify themselves as homosexuals or lesbians than those who are raised in, your traditional, conventional two-parent home with a husband and a wife. So this is not something that the state needs to get behind. This is a horrific social experiment to do on the kids. You know, children don't exist, adopted children don't exist to fulfill the parental needs and desires of parents. The adoption situation should exist from the state's perspective to fulfill the needs of the children that need to be adopted. And it's not about people getting to raise kids. It's about the kids need somebody to care for them. And if people want to care for the kids, it better be the best kind of couple for them. So there's no, it absolutely makes no sense to do this gay marriage thing. Marriage under the law should not exist. People say, well, don't you have the right to marry the person you love? Well, you could have a ceremony, you could tell everybody what you think, but why does it have to be recognized under the law? The law, does the law exist so that you can express your love to somebody else? Do we have to have tax deductions and forms and certificates and all that kind of stuff for that? No, you need the taxes and the forms and all that for legal issues like inheritance and wills and all that boring stuff. So what the gay rights movement is doing is trying to use all this to legitimize homosexuality. And but I still don't get why they have to go through the marriage route and try to redefine the whole homosexual thing through the marriage, except to get legitimacy, and then I guess their institutions they create can take on a life of their own. But it's not good for society, and it's not anything necessary, and it's not a civil rights issue. If there's marriage in a society, which is a union of one man and one woman, anybody that wants to should be able to participate in that, regardless of whatever label they want to do or whatever their sexual preferences are. And they should be a decent human being and divulge necessary information to the other person that they're wanting to engage in a marriage with. Okay, it's just as a matter of ethics. Thank you very much for watching the video.